Real fake, real fake, real fake, real fake news.
Welcome to the Real Fake News on KPCRadio.com, a critically sarcastic analysis of news. In this show, we'll differentiate real news from the fake with help from comedians, college professors, advocates, and experts. Today, we will discuss taxes, Julian Assange's arrest, comedians dying on stage, and more. I'm your host, Jesse Bertel. So joining me here today, we have comedian Mikey Mileos and filmmaker and modern monetary theory proponent Virginia Cotts. Hi, how's it going, guys?
Good. How's it going?
Doing great.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So our discussion today will be formatted as a game of real news, fake news, where I'm going to present real news stories or fake news stories, and I'll ask you questions about it. That sound good?
Sounds
Yay.
good.
All right. Well, now that we know the rules, let's play the game. In real news, the BBC reports that comedian Ian Cognito literally died on stage, giving a whole new meaning to the figurative term dying on stage. This reminds me of the time I did stand-up comedy at a retirement home. I killed.
What's your death count?
I don't want to tell anybody because the government... No, I'm just kidding.
I want to know how old he was.
I think he was 60.
Oh my God, so young.
Yes. He was, it's a matter of perspective, I suppose. I feel like, I read the article and because I'm into this stuff. He actually died, and for 5 minutes, he was on stage for a whole 5 minutes and people were laughing and didn't know he had died.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I mean, what does that tell us about human nature that everyone thought it was part of the act, like real news or fake news? You know what I mean? It's so hard to tell.
Well, comedy is about creating tension and releasing tension. So they probably just thought it was escalating the tension, and then they found out that there was no joke.
And some of the more interesting comics will push that beyond what people think is acceptable, sort of longer, and some of the greatest comedians have been like that. It's
almost like by pushing it so far and then having no punchline at the end, he became an alt comic or something. It's I feel like though dying on stage is like literally dying. It's like he died doing what he loved, and it's the best way to go out.
I know, right? For a comedian, that must be there you go.
And the fact that people were laughing
on stage,
for 5 minutes. Even after, it's like...
It kind of does show that he must have been pretty good. I mean, he must have done his job, right?
No. Don't you want to kill on stage and not die on stage?
You do, but he killed while he was dying.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Simultaneous.
Okay. Killed and died at the same time.
You know, it's like I've died plenty of times on stage and then wish I could kill myself. But
he'll certainly be remembered.
Let's move on.
That's some real fake news. Okay, let's move on. Let's play again. In fake news, commondreams.org reports that NPR tried to deceive the public by lying about Julian Assange's arrest in a live interview with award-winning journalist Glenn Greenwald, and then removing the interview from the online portion of the show. So does Julian Assange's arrest reveal a threat to press freedom, not only from the government, but from the press itself?
Absolutely. And I don't understand the media, the mainstream media, going after Julian Assange. Tomorrow it could be them. My understanding is that he's being charged with encouraging Chelsea Manning to get more information, which is what a journalist does.
That's exactly what journalists do,
yeah. Chase down leads.
Yeah.
Well, some people think he's been charged with the hacking, but I looked at it, and if you listen to the Greenwald interview, that's not in the indictment. It was that he wasn't classified to receive classified. I mean, what?
Yeah, but then either was all the New York Times and all the outlets that later then posted the same stuff.
Right.
You know, it's like, why does it stop there? You know, I guess they say that it was public domain at that point, but I don't know. Why is Assange the guy that's on the hook for it? He just got the information and then gave it to the world.
You know, Rebecca Rice, one of the writers for Real Progressives, just did an article called We Should Talk About Julian. And I think that's the perfect title, because I think we all should talk about why we're letting this happen. Why isn't the left up in arms? It's a threat to all of us. The Pentagon Papers had a lot to do with ending the Vietnam War. And I know about that because I'm old and I was there.
You were there, yeah.
But no, it's really true. We need people like Julian Assange. But you know what else really annoys me? Is that sex thing hanging over him. They always use sex or money. He was, or in his case now they're saying he was messy in the embassy. He
was a bad guest.
He exposed the hypocrisy of the new president of Ecuador, but while the country is living under austerity conditions, the president was feasting on lobster with his offshore account
In his golden tower.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's and it's interesting too that NPR put it out and then took out part of the interview.
Interesting, yeah.
You know, to their
It's not what journalists are supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
To their credit, they did post putting up this Glenn Greenwald article, feeling cute, might delete later. You know, so these things happen. We all try to take things back if we can.
Right.
You know, do you guys live in you moved to LA 5 years ago?
Right.
Like do you drive in LA?
I hate driving in LA, but sometimes I have to.
Well, sometimes you'll be driving and people will put on their blinker to cut into your lane, and if you don't let them in, they'll just turn it off and act like they didn't want to go that way anymore. You know,
saving face, you mean?
Yeah, it's like, oh no, I live here now. This is basically it's human nature to like, oh my God, should I pull this back? You know, and so I do I kind of feel for NPR, but at the same time, they're journalists and they need to have integrity.
Yeah, well, it's what Chomsky calls flack in the industry that pressures other journalists to act the same way and to follow the same path that the rest of the journalists, which is important in a lot of ways, but it also leads to an opening for propaganda, both from corporations and from government. What do you think about this?
I think that's what the mainstream media is about. This concept of journalistic objectivity really means the status quo. Mm-hmm. It really means the capitalist corporate media, that they're going along with the system. So if you don't have an opinion, you have an opinion.
Yeah. I also feel like with the Russians narrative, it was like the official news narrative is that they spent $140,000 on Facebook ads, and that's what swayed the election. Who has more influence, $140,000 in targeted ads, or the entire mainstream media apparatus telling us 24/7 on every television who's going to win? You know, and
right.
So they
it's basically
it's on them. Yeah. They're the ones who elevated Trump, showed Trump,
Absolutely.
and then when he wins, they're like, we need a scapegoat. It's quick, the Russians, and it's funny because they just go back to McCarthyism, and it's like the left are supposed to be the progressive people that aren't falling for like xenophobia and all these threats, and all of a sudden it's like, well, these people are white enough to be xenophobic about, you know, and so now it's like it's all good.
Oh, I never thought of it that way.
Well, and there's also a fine line between, I think, what progressives are talking about when it comes to fake news and what Trump is talking about when he talks about fake news.
Absolutely.
Would you agree with that? I mean,
yeah. I mean, the organization I'm here representing is Real Progressives, and we are constantly dissecting the news stories and looking for the nugget of truth, especially when it comes to economics. As you know, that's my area of interest.
So when progressives talk about fake news, how does it differentiate from, say, Trump's, obviously bad press about him as fake news?
Yeah.
Well, I think it has to do with the emphasis. The American elections are controlled by the mainstream media. We get all of our information. The candidates can go out and speak, but if we don't get it from the television or the newspaper, if they don't report it to us, we don't know what they're saying. And we don't know their histories. That's fake news. If they ignore Bernie Sanders, it's fake news. He's the most popular politician right now, and they pretend like he's just one of the some what do you call it, novelty novelty candidate.
I saw a headline that his massive support is troubling to the DNC now. Like, why? This should be good, right? Don't we want to win?
I saw a headline that
they
a Fox News reporter said that it's troubling because on the surface his policies seem very reasonable. And so it was like and it's attractive it's attractive to the American people, so it's troubling.
Oh yeah, I know. That's scary stuff when it could work.
Yeah, and even like
we don't want it to work too fast.
Yeah, and even him going to do Fox, it was like he's copping flack. It's like everyone has just it's supposed to be about the people. It's not about our side is better. It's like, how do we progress as a country? But people are like, we don't talk to them. We ignore them. It's like, he goes out, you reach out. You know, like it's easy to like push people away. There's a story, I feel it's relevant. There was I feel a lot of people on both sides actually push people away rather than bringing them in.
Yes.
You know, and there was this African American jazz musician called I believe Daryl Davis, and the KKK showed up on his door. And what he did was he invited them in for drinks. And over whatever length of his time, got 200 people to quit the KKK. You know?
Wow.
It's easy to go out and say, you're wrong. But you bring people in and you're like, all right, let's talk about this.
Wow.
And people, like, after a while, they just couldn't reconcile that, whatever their views, like, you know, all black people are terrible and this dude's cool. Right. And at the same, like, for a long time, they would be like, well, this one guy. And then it's just like, eventually they're like, I can't do this anymore.
Nothing is really that black and white in the world. There's so much nuance, but the media has to form a dichotomy, a false dichotomy a lot of the time, because they need to, you know, they need people to watch. And without a battle, you know, without this team versus this team, it's hard to keep people like on edge. What's going to happen next? All right, well, let's go ahead and move on to the next story. Let's play again. In real news, according to CBS News, minimum wage would be $33 today if it grew like Wall Street bonuses have. So you guys think the federal minimum wage should see a 1,000% increase just like wealthy CEOs have seen since 1985?
I think it's time we introduce a minimum wage bonuses for minimum wage jobs, where if you do your minimum wage job, you get a bonus. And it can also... No, I don't think that at all.
No.
It's hard because it's like in the capitalist society, it's like these are the jobs that people want to do. They make the money and then they need to do something with it to avoid taxes. And so I guess they give them as bonuses or it's incentives, and that's where all the money is. So that's how it goes.
Well, I'm kind of looking at it from a different perspective, but... the minimum wage is still $7.25.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to raise a family. You're a single dad. Imagine trying to raise a family on $7.25 an hour, or trying to pay off your student debt. I mean, really.
I know all about that too.
But and the $15 minimum wage, which was proposed, I don't know, 8 or 9 years ago already. Now, finally, the Democratic Party, at least, is coming around to it. I know Bernie bullied Amazon into paying. I think $15 is too low if you live in Los Angeles or New York, certainly. So $33 makes a lot of sense. But let me say something. There are two main groups that benefit from suppressing wages, which is what's been happening to the American worker for 40, 50 years. One is the actual people who pay them, the corporate, their employers, and the other is the financial industry. Because when you don't make enough money, what do? You use your credit card, you take out mortgages, you certainly take out student loans. I'm sure people on Pierce campus can relate to that. So there are two very powerful interest groups who want to keep the minimum wage suppressed, to keep wages suppressed in general.
And you said a part of the Real Progressives, which
right.
One of their big things is modern monetary theory.
Modern monetary theory. And we believe those of us who are proponents of understanding modern monetary theory believe in a federal job guarantee, which would lift the bottom up. It would create a blanket of employed workers. Imagine if you're making $7.25 at McDonald's and the federal job guarantee is in your town. You can walk out the door and go get a guaranteed job for $15 or whatever the minimum wage is. Right. I'm hoping it'll be more than 15, but 15 seems to be the consensus right now.
Let's start with something. I mean, It's not enough in Los Angeles, but in Middle America, that would be at least, something.
It's more than double the minimum wage.
I read that just getting out of poverty is around 100 to 150,000 in most major cities.
Yeah.
Just barely out of poverty.
Yeah.
That's now the lower middle class.
So that 33, what did you say it was? If the minimum wage had come up, 30, that sounds a little more reasonable.
Yeah, I think it does.
33.
I could use a raise.
Yeah.
I just don't I don't disagree and I don't know enough, but it's like, what are the implications of raising the minimum wage? Like, how does that affect all of everything? Like, if the cost of business goes up, because it's hard, because in the economic model that we have, with capitalist system, if you're not having growth for 2 years, then you're in a recession. It doesn't. I feel like the capitalist model is actually unsustainable, because basically you have to make more profit. Like, say we had a company, we made $1 billion this year. That's great, right? Mm-hmm. Next year we made $900 million. That's awesome.
You're a failure.
Yeah. but next year we make $899 million. Oh, okay. Or we're declining.
Yep.
But that's still amazing money. Why does it have to be more every year?
But that's the basic law of capitalism. Increase the rate of profit.
But then that's not sustainable either. That means then things have to fail to make room for new things. Or because it's a zero sum, like there's only so much money.
I'm a socialist. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
But let me also say, the organization I represent is not necessarily socialist. Some of us are. But I think however we get there, if we can find a way to bring prosperity to everyone, then I don't care what system it's under. If we can make it work under capitalism, okay.
We better move on at that note. So let's play again. In fake news, the Washington Post reports that Bernie Sanders has too much money to speak to working-class Americans. Is this true? Is Bernie Sanders now part of the 1% that he so famously rallies against? Does this make his presidential campaign irrelevant?
No, can I
Yes.
say? I say no. Can Billy Joel still sing Piano Man to blue-collar workers? If the answer is yes, then Bernie can still spit. It's the same song that he wrote 40 years ago. He's been saying the same thing, just because he's doing better for himself. Like, in fact, he should, like, we all still love him because it's not about him being broke or poor. It's about his message, and now maybe some of the people that care about how much money someone has will start to find him more appealing too,
You know what's so interesting about political campaigns? No, about the American people's reaction. It's like we've all signed on to this social compact that we're going to, instead of looking at candidates for what they've done, what they're really saying, we play the horse race game. So it's like some kind of postmodern weirdness where the media is saying, not does Bernie's money not would his money affect him as a president, but will it affect the way the people perceive him in the race? But the way the people perceive him is through the media. So it's this kind of auto-cannibalism of the media reporting on the media report. Does that sound crazy?
Yes,
because it is. Right. But my feeling is that I want people to be lifted up. I don't care if Bernie has money. I mean, first of all, does he own factories in India and China where he's making small children work for pennies a day making designer clothes? No, he wrote a book. come on. I mean,
And he's 80 years old. People are telling me he's got 3 houses. I'm like, at 80.
yeah.
You know, it's like, that's like, how, like, I don't know, like, it's not, by any means, you wouldn't think someone that has like $2 million in assets is killing it. Like, one house can be $2 million.
Yeah.
Where you know what I mean?
But anybody who thinks Bernie's in it for the money doesn't know his history.
So socialists want the American dream too, then? Is that what you're...
Absolutely.
So
Why not?
when you talk about socialism, we're talking more of a mix of capitalistic socialism kind of thing then, because otherwise, I mean, pure socialism is completely shared, isn't it? I mean, so you can't have 3 houses unless your neighbor has 3
Well,
houses.
I feel it's like socialism where it matters to the people. You know, things that affect society, like prisons and education and schools. I don't think they necessarily should be like based on profit schemes, because then that starts to it actually becomes a detriment to society. Cool, you can go to private schools and stuff, but we still want we want people to be smart, right? And we want people to be healthy and not like the rich people complain about how many homeless people there are. Why? Because they can't afford to pay for their hospital bills. So if we just shift the expense from like what Bernie's saying, from having crazy premiums and crazy insurance prices, just to everyone pays a bit more tax, and then it's all good.
Well, I totally disagree on that.
Oh yeah.
Because federal taxes do not fund federal spending.
Okay.
And that's what modern monetary theory, and I really hope you look into it, because
Yeah, I remember that being the big thing with,
yeah.
obviously economics is not my, I don't,
Oh, it's not mine either.
okay.
But I understand how important it is. So I'm educating myself on it. And there are some amazing teachers out there, including the Real Progressives founder Steve Grumbine, who has interviewed all of the great MMT teachers. But let me just say that Bernie's economics advisor for the second campaign in a row is Stephanie Kelton, one of the originators of modern monetary theory. So I'm not sure why Bernie's still talking about taxes to fund spending. Surely he knows better.
So
by now.
where do the federal taxes go?
Well, taxes serve a purpose, but the federal government creates money in the U.S., in Australia, not in Germany, France, and Italy and Greece, because they're on the euro.
Sure.
But England, so the federal government creates money. In fact, in the U.S., the dollar is backed by the full faith and credit of the United States government. Not gold, not your taxes, not bond sales.
All right, well, let's do our last story of the day. Let's play again. In real news, tax day was this week, and according to the New York Intelligencer, tax refunds are down, which could be bad for both Trump and for the economy. How is it bad for Trump?
Because he promised this miracle.
Tax relief, yeah.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because I read the reason that it's down is Trump told the IRS to stop collecting as much taxes so that people could see a small bump in their take-home pay.
Yeah.
So basically, he just took their tax returns and gave it to them through the year. And then when it came tax day, they maybe had to pay some, or they got they got like
when I was
small...
doing my taxes, it was in a larger room of other people doing it, and there was people next to me like, wait, what do you mean I owe money?
Right.
Yeah.
I owe $60. I should be getting a couple hundred at least. I always get, I've been doing the same thing. And I do independent contracts, so actually mine went up. But most people's, if you do normal 9 to 5 and it's salaried or whatever, you're going to end up paying a little bit more, I think probably just though on the lower end, right? Does this affect the super rich or?
It never seems to, does it?
Right.
I think it's affecting the, what I read is that it's affecting consumer spending. So on some level,
Yes.
People are going to stop spending, so it will affect them, but not enough for they're still getting massive tax breaks. So at the end of the day,
Not enough. I think the middle class should pay a lot less in taxes, and small businesses should pay a lot less. I think it's crazy. You were asking what taxes are for.
yeah.
one of the things they can be for is to eliminate such inequality. You tax the rich more, not because we need their money to pay for anything, but because they have all this money, they're using it for the wrong things, like buying Congress. And so why do they need it? But my concern is more bringing the people up rather than the up down.
Well, unfortunately, we are out of time. This has been a really great conversation, and I don't normally say that. I really appreciate you guys. But before I go, I'd like to give you both a chance to tell our listeners where they can find out more about you. Mikey, you want to start?
Sure, yeah. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter and on my website, and they're all the same, Mikey Mileos, obviously .com for the website, and just @ for the other two. I have some shows coming up. I have one on Friday at Cultura e Subura on Franklin, and I don't know what the cross section is. And but there's stuff on my website. Yep.
All right, Virginia?
Oh, well, I'm at Real Progressives, and we have a wonderful podcast, if you're interested in MMT in particular, called Macro and Cheese. And if you look it up, it's Macron, like the French president, macroncheese.com. Real Progressives has Facebook. We have a website. We have Twitter. If you just put it in your search engine, Real Progressives, you'll get all of those links.
Awesome. Well, thank you both for joining me here today on The Real Fake News.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thanks for having us.
This was
And
great.
thanks to our listeners for tuning in. On the next episode, my guests will be comedian and progressive activist Elizabeth Croydon and best-selling author and organizer Luis J. Rodriguez. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Patreon at Jesse Bertel. Tune in to The Real Fake News every Wednesday at 1:30 p.m. on kpcradio.com and the following day on my YouTube.
Real fake, real fake, real fake, real fake news.
Cool, this was good.
Awesome. That was one of my favorite shows so far. I really appreciate you guys. Yeah, they've been up and down, and this was a good one.
Oh, awesome.
Well, that's because you have incredible
thank you guys.
guests.